Hello, my name is Maximilian Prinz-Wohlgenannt, and today I will be giving you a presentation about our experiences with the OncomineTM Myeloid Assay and the Analytical Validation Consulting Service. First of all, here are my conflicts of interest. To start off, I want to give you a bit of a background from our lab. So I'm working at the General Hospital of Horn at the Institute of Clinical Pathology and Molecular Pathology. Horn is a small city in Lower Austria. So to put us on a map, the red pin is where you would be able to find us, so close to the Czech border in the periphery of Austria. The clinical pathology in Horn is providing for 4 clinics within a region called Waldviertel, where in total there are around 1,000 beds. And in the Institute of Molecular Pathology, we are dealing with samples for investigation of infectious diseases as well as oncology. We have about 6,000 samples per year, out of which there are 150 solid tumor samples. However, this number is rapidly rising, so this would be from last year. The oncology testing in our institute was done by real-time PCR until 2016. And this is just a list that I like to keep reminding myself about, because this is about the time that I got employed. And back then, we only looked at these 4 genes by real-time PCR. As you can imagine, only certain hotspots and exons. So we had EGFR for NSCLC samples, and then we did KRAS, BRAF, NRAS for colorectal cancer, NRAS for melanoma, but that was it. In 2016, we started our NGS project, and we didn't buy a sequencer back then, but we started a collaboration with the Medical University of Graz. So this is a leading institute in Austria in the field of NGS, and this was really valuable for us to get the know-how from these experts. So they basically taught us how to do the library preparation, which we did in our institute. We then sent the libraries to the Medical University, where they did the sequencing. And we were then able to access our own data through a cloud access and do the variant calling again in our institute in Horn. So in this way, we really got to learn a lot about the sequencing process without actually having a sequencer. Until 2023, we only investigated solid tumor samples and started with the myeloid only last year. We always wanted to have a sequencing facility or a sequencer in Horn. However, there were just a couple of hurdles that we had to cross. First of all, as I already told you, we are rather a small institute in a small hospital. So we simply didn't have enough samples ourselves to really buy a sequencer to use it at capacity. Then the samples that we receive are already transported to us. So there is a certain time delay, which didn't really allow us to batch those samples, because it would have been too long turnaround time. And yeah, we are a small lab with many different tasks, so it's not like there's an oncology facility or anything. It's more that everybody has to do everything. So we also had to manage that. The solution presented itself with the Genexus sequencer, which now is a highly automated system. It allows flexible run planning because the sequencing chip is divided into 4 lanes that can be used separately or in combination. And this together really enables low turnaround time, even if you have a small number of samples. So the sequencer was then acquired for us, and along with the sequencer, the Analytical Validation Consulting Service. First of all, I want to give you a bit of a framework here. with about the AVS, so Analytical Validation Service. What you get here is basically a validation plan that is drafted by an AV specialist. And along with this plan, you get all sorts of assistance, help, consultation. So you will be provided with a run schedule, which will be optimized in collaboration with the laboratory personnel. The data is reviewed again in collaboration. So for us, it was done through weekly calls that we were just continually discussing the project, the data, etc. And in the end, the final report, as well as the final analysis of all the data, is with the consultation of an AV specialist. But most importantly, all of those steps are adapted to your specific requirements. So it's not like the AV specialist will tell you the plan and how to do it, but you can really set your own goals for what you want to validate and in what time. So for us, we started with this AVS in 2022 after finishing our basic training on the Genexus. The first assay that we validated was the OncomineTM Precision Assay with the DNA and RNA workflow. Back then, the technical project manager was John Williamson, situated in California. And yeah, together we drafted a plan where we set these different technical parameters that we wanted to validate, like accuracy, sensitivity, etc. For the OncomineTM Precision Assay, for this first validation, we took about 5 months, which was longer than we hoped for and longer than we anticipated. So at the beginning, there were some delays with getting the consumables as well as reagents. And yeah, so basically we were one of the first Genexus customers in Austria, and I think within Europe. There were just some sort of growing pains, and supply shortages were a general problem in 2022 due to the corona pandemics. However, Thermo Fisher reacted here. They built an AVS team for Europe, and the next few projects were then under the lead of Simon New and Christina Guyen. And we validated the BRCA assay for the somatic workflow, the myeloid assay, as well as the ctDNA workflow. And each of these we were able to validate within 3 months, while already using the Genexus for the OPA. So once things got going, the process was really smooth and it was much, much faster than we could have hoped for. I'm now showing you some of our data from the validation from the myeloid assay. So we finished this first validation in April 2023. We had to do another round, a bridge validation, because a new ADF was introduced. So ADF being the assay definition file, which is basically the file that defines how the library is created and how the sequencing is done on the Genexus. And so there were some improvements made by Thermo Fisher. And as you can see, with both of those workflows, we really got great values here for the parameters that we validated. And they were still slightly improved with the new ADF. So yeah, most importantly for us, all the requirements that we set at the beginning were fulfilled. The results that we got were in conformity. So in this project, especially for this validation, it was really nice that we got samples from different institutes, from the Medical University of Graz, as well as Wiener Neustadt, which is a sister institute within Lower Austria. And Wiener Neustadt basically went through the same process as we did. So they got the Genexus around the same time and they did the same validation projects. And here we were really able to show true reproducibility as we both collected samples and exchanged them. And we were able to get the same results, not only working on different days and by different technicians, but also on different Genexuses in different institutes. We validated bone marrow samples as well as EDTA blood samples, which is also the samples that assay was designed for. However, we are also now looking into FFPE and blood smear samples. And so this is a validation that we are doing right now, which is still ongoing. First results look quite promising. And yeah, these are just samples that we have commonly available at the pathology. Good. So to conclude, our experience with the Analytical Validations Consulting Service, we were able to validate 4 assays in roughly 1 year. We did this validation in parallel with our daily work without having to employ or somebody else to do this work. We acquired a lot of know-how and really got to learn the ins and outs of the Genexus. Also got some tools to conduct our own validations and the bridge validations. So we also just learned a lot in this area. All in all, I can really say that we saved a lot of time and nerves. And we see this now, even the small validation that we're trying to do with the different sample type just takes that much longer if you have to try and make this work in parallel to your daily work. With this, I'm leading over to our first impressions with the OncomineTM Myeloid Assay. So as of this recording, it has been in use for about 8 months, and we tested around 100 samples. The quality of the data, most importantly, is really good. This was already evident in the validation, but it still holds true now that we're analyzing the quote real samples. However, the ADF still needs some further improvement. So what we're experiencing is that certain samples in some of the runs cannot be analyzed because of sequencing errors. However, this is an issue that Thermo Fisher is aware of and already trying to improve, and I'm sure it will soon be resolved. We regularly get matched samples, so blood and bone marrow matched, which is a point that I will further go into in a moment. In these samples, we really see a nice reproducibility, which also, again, just shows that the data that we get is robust and yeah. In comparison to solid tumor analysis, the variant calling in the OncomineTM Myeloid Assay can be quite challenging. There are basically 2 reasons for that. One being that the myeloid assay is a quite huge assay, where you have a lot of genes where all of the exons are sequenced, and it's tumor suppressors. So any variant that you find can potentially be important, pathogenic. So it's just much more difficult to classify them at times in comparison to, let's say, a colon cancer where you're just interested in certain hotspots in oncogenes. Yeah, what was really positive for us is that with the myeloid assay, with introducing the myeloid assay, we also got a new sender. So we're just getting more samples, which was really important for us to use the Genexus at capacity. The senders report shorter turnaround time, which is also really positive for us. And they actually already asked us when we will start to analyze the lymphoid samples. With this, I want to make a short excursus to pre-analytics topic. So, as I said, we do get matched samples of peripheral blood and bone marrow, which led us to the question, which of the samples would be best suited if you are interested in investigating myeloid neoplasms. And it has been shown in numerous studies that there is a very strong correlation in these samples. And I'm showing here now a study that also looked at the blast counts. So there is a strong correlation of the mutations as well as the variant allele frequency in between mutations detected in blood and bone marrow. And this correlation is independent of blast count. So in the top chart, you can see samples where the blast count was absent to low, so either no blasts or just low blast counts. And in the bottom chart, it's medium to high blast counts, and it's basically the same image. On the other hand, there is a lack of correlation between blast percentage in the bone marrow and the variant allele frequency. So this is something you might expect, that if you have high blast counts, that you have a higher variant allele frequency, but this simply doesn't hold true. So taken together, you can really say that the results of a peripheral blood NGS can be relied upon even if bone marrow evaluation is not feasible. Coming back to the Oncomine Myeloid Assay, I want to point out some caveats and some limitations of the assay. First of all, the limit of detection. So we were able to validate a limit of detection of 5% allele frequency. We did get some variant calls below this threshold, but they were just not really reliable or reproducible. And the assay does not have molecular barcoding, so I think this is really sort of the limit that you can reasonably reach. So if you're interested in topics like CHIP or MRD, it's just not the right assay here. However, there would be an assay available which has molecular barcoding. This is the Oncomine Myeloid MRD assay, but this cannot be run on the Genexus. Quality of the samples, obviously always a very important point, is something that has not really been an issue for us when dealing with the native samples, the blood and bone marrow samples, but it's more something that we see now that we are trying to also validate the FFPE samples, which again, the assay actually wasn't designed for. But in general, if the quality of your sample is somewhat impaired, if the quality parameters are, let's say, borderline okayish, then you might get just false positive calls within homopolymeric regions. So this is just something you have to be aware about. The FLT3 internal tandem duplications are covered in this assay. Even the big duplications are covered. However, here also you have some limitations with the assay, as these ITDs can be quite big. So I'm showing here in the table from a study that investigated the length of those ITDs. As you can see, most of them are not that big. So let's say about 60 base pairs in size. However, they can be over 100 base pairs. And if you now insert, let's say 50 to 100 base pairs in a 200 base pair amplicon, you will just get, it will be difficult to properly annotate this and align this. So I would really recommend here, if you have a positive call, to maybe double check with a different technique like fragment length analysis to validate your results here. Yeah, some more general tips and tricks working on the Genexus system. So most of the assays are hotspot-based files, hotspot-based assays. You have a hotspot file in the background, which will be used for the analysis. these hotspot files can be edited, so you can add or remove certain variants that are important for you. It's just that in general, the analysis can be filtered according to this hotspot file, which on the one hand you might lose variants that you're interested in. On the other side, you can save yourself a lot of headache if you just only look at your hotspot file variants. I highly recommend to visually check your data in IGV. So you like this, you will be able to detect artifacts in homopolymeric regions if your sample has poor quality. Or what I'm showing here in this image is this FLT3 ITD that I was just talking about. So in our validation, we actually had one sample which had 2 ITDs, one of 30 base pairs length and the other of, I think it was 53. And as you can see, the shorter one was correctly annotated and called. However, in the lower part, you see the blue reads, the back reverse reads. They are somehow cut off. And in the end, this was just the duplication that was too long to be properly annotated, and it was cut off in this bioinformatics process. And it was then reported as a 30 base pair duplication, which was just not really correct. Some more general tips of how to use, how to optimize the GeneXus workflow. So the rule of thumb here is connect 4. If you have 4, you win. What I'm trying to say is that, first of all, the reagents you use are for 4 and multiple 4 samples. So the run costs will be the same if you have 2, 3, or 4 samples, which allows you to sort of fill up your runs, which is something that we use to do technical duplicates with samples where we already suspect that the quality is not as good. And 4 is also the lowest, the number where you will have the shortest runtime. So this is really the way of how to optimize the benefit from this machine that can be really fast. So you can really have a 24-hour turnaround time from sample to report, but you have to have the right number of samples at the runtime. Just something to keep in mind when you are planning your turnaround time goals. Ja, with this, I can only say danke für Ihre Aufmerksamkeit. Thank you for your attention.